You have to use these.
Thanks. At 6 p.m., all members are present. So with that being said, we will move right on to ordinance number 2953, zoning code text amendment, co-living housing. We have with us Ryan Windisch, Director of Economic and Community Development, and City Administrator Jason Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn it directly over to Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Turn that microphone on. Thank you. I was ready to do that.
It's an issue tonight. Don't worry about it.
And I'll be presenting on zoning code text amendment regarding co-living housing. You're probably all wondering what that is, so I'm going to try to explain how this works. So in 2024, the legislature adopted House Bill 1998, and it amended the Growth Management Act to require cities to allow co-living housing in zones where at least 6 dwelling units are allowed in one structure. So really multi-family zones, and I have a map that shows where these would be allowed in the city. And the intent is to allow this type of housing to expand housing options and affordability. One of the kind of targeted demographics for co-living housing is really single-person households seeking more affordable housing options. So co-living housing is defined as residential development with independently rented sleeping units with shared kitchen facilities. And I'll talk about what sleeping units are because you're probably all wondering. Cities are required to adopt these regulations by December 31st, 2025. You'll note that we missed that deadline. I don't think we're currently in threat of being overcome by co-living housing, and even if we were, the regulations are pretty good at the state level. So, zoning code updates. It adds definitions for co-living housing, sleeping units, shared kitchens, and other related terms. This would allow for co-living housing to be permitted in all zones, all our multifamily zones, I mean. And it would add performance, density, and open space and parking and sewer connection standards consistent with state law, and I'll walk through those details. and it would ensure co-living housing is regulated no more restrictively than other multifamily residential. And the way to accomplish that in the code is just to add co-living housing as part of the multifamily residential definitions in the code. And then when you go through and see where multifamily residential is allowed, co-living is kind of right there with it. So this map shows the areas in pink, it's pinkish, purplish color, where co-living housing would be allowed. This is where we allow for at least structures with 6 units, which includes our town center plan area around the train station, multifamily zones north of Main Street, north of the high school. Sorry, I don't have a pointer. And what you don't see in purple on here is industrial zones, interchange commercial zones where we don't allow residential housing, or what are our low-density residential zones, which are characterized generally as single-family residential. So those are the areas that co-living housing would be allowed. So what are sleeping units? So a sleeping unit is a unit that is no more than 300 square feet. A private bathroom is required. And the key here is there is no kitchen associated within a sleeping unit. You can have a kitchenette. You might be asking yourself, what's the difference? Kitchens have a 240 volt plug-in for an electric range, and a kitchenette only has 120 volt plug-ins. Both could have, a microwave oven, could have a sink, could have counters for preparing food, but the difference is one could have an electric range at 240 volt and one could not. Shared kitchens are required at a minimum ratio of 1 per 15 sleeping units. State law, oddly enough, I think it's odd, doesn't provide any ratio. It also doesn't provide a maximum square footage. Where I got those numbers is from a model ordinance that was developed by our partners at SHAPE, the South Sound Housing Affordability Partnership. They came up with a model ordinance based on some guidance from the state. And so I pulled some of these requirements from that model ordinance. And the reason there's a limit on kind of maximum size is that these are intended really to be for single person occupancy. And so this provides a space that could have a sleeping area and a kitchenette and a bathroom. And so if you could imagine these co-living housing, so you've got multiple sleeping units in there, probably single occupancy, that's really the intent. And so state law requires that any density calculations, so if you're allowed 20 units to the acre, let's say, dwelling units to the acre as a density, you could do 4 sleeping units for every 1 dwelling unit. So you could do 80 sleeping units in a co-living development if it were allowed to do 20 units to the acre. So you can do 4 times as much density. And then there's also some calculations that I'll talk about regarding sewer that are reduced as well. And then open space requirements, so 1 sleeping unit equals half of the requirements for a dwelling unit. We calculate open space when we start looking into the details of our design and development guidelines where that's applicable. So that would be a change there. Parking requirements. So state law says the maximum you could charge, the minimum would be 1 parking stall per 4 sleeping units. So that's a minimum. And then no parking would be required within a half a mile of a major transit stop, which the definition would include the sounder station. So within this circle, and this circle goes well beyond, honestly, the town center boundary, but so it goes into the low density residential where you couldn't do co-living housing, not to be too confusing, but within this half a mile circle that's allows for co-living, the city would not be able to require any parking. Now, the developer would have the option to do parking, and they often do because they realize it's hard to lease a unit if you don't have a parking space. And then state law allows for a city to basically seek an exception from that rule by conducting a traffic study. And it has to be done by a certified engineer or planning consultant. And I just want to kind of read the particulars there because it was a point of discussion and recommendation by the Planning Commission. So the city would have to do an empirical study prepared by a credentialed transportation or land use planning expert that clearly demonstrates, and then the Department of Commerce would have to certify it as well, that this parking limitation will be significantly less safe for vehicle drivers or passengers, pedestrians, or bicyclists than if the jurisdiction's parking requirements were applied to the same location. So basically, if the city wants to seek an exception to this no parking within a half a mile, we'd have to do a study, and it would have to conclude that our city streets were unsafe or less safe, significantly less safe for drivers, passengers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And not only that, if you think it through a little bit, you'd also have to have enough co-living construction to kind of start to create, I don't know, a problem in my mind. The recommendation from the Planning Commission that came out was to have the study done, recommending the council do the study. Staff's recommendation is to not do a study, at least not anytime soon, because, first of all, it's not real beneficial for us to have a conclusion that our streets are unsafe. And I think, first of all, I think it's going to be hard, honestly, to draw any kind of a nexus between on-street parking that might be happening versus things that are unsafe. And the reason I'm saying that is because if we're enforcing our parking codes the way we should be enforcing them, and our streets are designed the way they should be designed, and everything's kind of lined out, our streets should be safe. I mean, it's going to be really tough, I think, to have somebody come in and make a case for unsafe streets if we're following all those things. So staff's recommendation is to not do the study. If the council wants to talk about doing a study, I have some ideas for when that could be done. And then sewer impact fees, 50%. There's a 50% cap in the bill for co-living housing on sewer fees. So the sewer fee for a multifamily dwelling unit is 0.75 ERU, 3/4 of an ERU, an equivalent residential unit. And so 50% of 3/4 is 0.375. So that would be, I think it's still accurate. It might have gone up a little bit under today's rates. It was about $2,100 per sleeping unit for sewer hookup fee. So that would have us compliant with state law as well. I have a staff report that's accompanied this document and concludes that it's consistent with our comprehensive plan, providing housing variety and affordability in those regards. And then the Planning Commission recommendation, this went to Planning Commission a couple times. They held a public hearing. We received public comment. And the Planning Commission recommended that the city conduct a traffic study per state law that I talked about earlier, and they passed it unanimously as a recommendation for adoption. So happy to answer any questions.
To be clear, though, what is in your recommendation?
Oh, my recommendation is to pass the ordinance as written and to not do a traffic study.
Questions?
Yeah, questions?
I was just going to say, and that is how it is prepared for your consideration. So there's nothing council would need to do to address the traffic study issue unless you chose to not follow staff's recommendation.
Okay. Councilmember Elfers.
Thanks, Ryan. I was just curious. I remember we had talked last year, not about co-living housing, but about when the parking garage was done and some of the parking, we have some parking requirements where people can get a certain number of parking passes and all that stuff. And there was some talk about doing a parking or traffic study after that, but I don't think it had anything to do with unsafe streets. So when you're talking about the traffic study, I don't understand the correlation between doing a traffic study and is it a specific, I don't get, can you explain what the difference in this traffic study would? The one we were talking about last year was not related to unsafe street. I don't think it, so what's the difference?
We would recommend, our recommendation, and I think it's even written into some of our policies in the comp plan, is to do an updated parking study for the downtown after we have a parking garage in, after, more than likely after the Red Apple Market area is developed, to, you know, ascertain whether or not we needed to address inadequate parking in the downtown. That's unrelated to a traffic study related to co-living housing.
Okay, so just make sure I'm trying to track with you. So
we're still going to do a parking study.
The parking study
won't address co-living housing.
Okay, because I think the issue with the traffic study was about parking, but it's the different type of. So that's where I'm getting confused. So this is you're looking at this is a state required. If you want an exemption from the parking requirements and you want to require more parking, then you would have to do a traffic study, and the traffic study would have to conclude that it's unsafe.
Correct.
And so and if it is traffic study is not doing traffic counts to see if you need to widen streets. It's actually specifically looking at safety.
Yeah, and I'm not sure all the intimate details of what it would represent there in terms of what gets studied, but the conclusion would have to be that it is significantly unsafe.
Okay, it's not just looking about because I was thinking traffic studies mostly relate to number of cars and how big the street is, and it sounds like it's similar to that, but it's more about the safety issue, which creates some liability, is what I understand.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, but we are going to do a parking study
We're
because I
gonna
do think
parking
people
study.
are concerned about parking.
It's not going to be next week, and it's not going to be next year, but it'll be after some of this development happens, and we're able to kind of see how things pan out.
So I'm hearing parking study not next week, but probably April. I'm just joking. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Rinke. Okay, let's try it again.
Yeah, I was just curious, do we have a rough estimate on what the parking study or traffic study costs? Is it very expensive? Is it $5,000, $20,000?
It's probably in the, I think I put 30 to 50. I responded to the same question earlier today in an email.
I think we said 25 to 30.
25 to 30. There we go.
Okay, thanks. I was just curious how expensive they are.
Councilmember Kenna.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, just a few questions on the back of what we exchanged emails on earlier. Want to make it clear, as you did in your presentation too, that this is in all the multifamily zoning locations, but I know specifically the parking issue is when we're focusing in on that near the transit stop and the sounder station. So to that effect, do you have an idea about the abundance of street parking that's available in that half-mile radius?
I don't know. I don't have numbers, but since it's in a residential parking zone, it gives you a good idea of kind of what the residents are utilizing for parking on the street. And in a co-living housing situation, if they're in a residential parking zone, those tenants could also be allowed to get a permit to park on the street. And if you drive those streets, I mean, there's anywhere from 50 to 70% of the street that's open for somebody else to park on, if it's in an RPZ zone.
Right. It's probably just those couple blocks around the train station that are
that are more
tougher.
that are taken up a little bit more. So yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of building parking, I know you said that a lot of developers, even if parking is not required, they may choose to do that anyway to provide a service, and customers may want that kind of parking anyway. Do you have an idea about the additional costs that it would add on to a project if a developer were to add parking? I know it's really ballparking it here, but.
Yeah, structured parking, these might be a little bit dated numbers, but 30 to 50,000 per space.
Okay.
And then surface parking is probably about half that.
Okay.
Or a third of that.
And
Yeah, half that.
And if I believe that I saw this in the agenda packet, but if somebody wanted to retrofit an existing house, I believe that's allowed. However, if that existing house doesn't have parking, and then we were seeking to require parking, that would be an impediment or a barrier to being able to do that. Is that right?
Yeah, if it's in an area that would be outside that half a mile, we'd be able to require parking, and it could be an impediment given that if it's a single family house and you can't create parking, say off an alley in the back or something like that, it could be an impediment. The other impediment is that for a house conversion is that there's a bathroom required to be in the sleeping unit, individual bathroom.
Right, okay.
So that might create a problem with the structure in terms of retrofitting it.
Okay. Lastly, so this didn't go to the Community Development Committee, just came straight to council?
Correct.
Yeah.
Came straight to council.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Council Member Wilsey.
Oh, there we go. So just to clarify, and I know we've already talked about it, but just to clarify that the state mandated the co-living housing in all of the cities. So what we're doing is we're clarifying the expectations of somebody building a co-living housing unit within the multifamily housing zones that we have, correct? That's
Correct.
what this is we're just
Correct.
clarifying exactly what our city's mandatory requirements are to build that co-living housing.
That's correct.
And one of those ways that we're doing that to define it is having the bathrooms for every single sleeping unit and other ways in which we can make sure that they're built to facilitate correctly.
Yes,
Okay.
that's true. That's correct. And I should also point out that in our code presently, we talk about rooming houses and boarding houses, which, if you look back in the history of those, it's a form of co-living.
Right.
So, kind of, I brought in the more modern discussion or definition of co-living housing and removed the reference to rooming and boarding houses.
Yeah.
Just as a anyway.
Yeah, I
Few
just
more
wanted
facts.
to, yeah, perfect. I just wanted to clarify that this wasn't something we're coming up with. This is something that we're editing to fit the city's expectations.
Correct.
Perfect.
To the degree that we can and still meet state law.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Hochstetter.
Thank you, Ryan. So to piggyback on Councilmember Wilsey here, between you as staff, how many of these units do you foresee coming our way here in Sumner? Between us not being maybe located in Seattle, where there's a lot of college campuses, where there's a big demand for it, and then on top of that, the city clarifying that there needs to be a bathroom for each unit. As a staff, how many do you think will be bombarded with these? Is this going to be far and few in between? What are your thoughts on that?
My crystal ball, if I have one, is that we're not going to be bombarded with this. I think one of the big limitations, I mean, you brought up some good points about, the college demographic isn't in Sumner. This is really I think a very urban, a much more urban type of style of development. And part of that has to do with, I think, more frequent transit service than the city of Sumner is currently able to provide. I think somebody who chooses to live in co-living is probably also maybe doesn't have a car. They're looking for an affordable place, affordable transportation, and I think part of the limitations would be that we don't have frequent transit.
And with that said, the traffic study side of it, with us knowing or not knowing, us foreseeing this not being, not taking on a lot of co-living and all that, I can understand the staff's recommendation of not needing a traffic study at this point. I can understand that. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. Anyone else? Nope. Deputy Mayor Elfers.
Thank you. Hey, I was just curious on the uses of these buildings. Are these something that we would allow to be condoized, or is this something that would just be pretty much 100% like a rental property? What kind of a ownership do you see? It sounds to me, I'm guessing that it's more of a rental property, which we have quite a few.
I think it would, I'm not an expert on it, but I'm kind of thinking the way a building would be configured with a shared kitchen, I think it'd be hard to condo them, honestly. I don't know if that would be, I don't know if it's impossible legally, but I don't know if it would be something desirable. I think it's far more likely it's going to be a rental.
Okay. I did like Mr. Bierman had some comments at the end that he'd put in. It sounded like he lived in co-living housing in Seattle and made some really good
Yes.
observations about our code and how that fit.
Yes.
It did sound a lot like it was much more appropriate for urban, although the state doesn't seem to differentiate anymore. So I think it seems like we're adding a different type of rental inventory is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have any anything related to senior housing? It seems like in some ways this could work for single
Yes.
young people or for seniors. Is that?
Yeah, seniors can prefer this type of housing because it's a little more social than maybe normal, and it's more affordable than normal maybe senior opportunities.
And could somebody build this and just limit it to 55 plus? Is that something that the code
I
allows?
think they would, yeah, they could.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
And Mayor, just for council's information, this is set for April 6th, regular council meeting for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to resolution number 1744-2027-2023, 6-year transportation improvement program annual update. So we have Public Works Director, Mr. Michael Kosa, Andrew Leach, Senior Associate Engineer, and Courtney Luttrell, Assistant Engineering Manager. You get some handouts.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council.
Hello.
I am Michael Kosa, the Public Works Director, and I'm so excited to be here to share with you our draft 6-year transportation improvement program for the years 2027 through 2032. I am joined by, as mentioned, Courtney Luttrell, who will be going over our roadway projects, and then also Andrew Leach, who will be going over our maintenance projects as well as our trail projects. So happy to be here. Love talking about projects. Love talking about capital improvements. So, but yes, a little introduction. You all have maps. The map is available in the presentation, and it was also in your packet, but we figured we'd print it out at 11 by 17, so it's a little bit bigger. And I would focus on the map. You can look at the other Excel spreadsheet that's printed out as well, but the map is very helpful for looking at where we're looking in the city, and there will be a lot of it in the slides. So with that, what is the 6-year transportation improvement program? So it identifies our transportation projects for the next 6 years. It allows this body to formally adopt the project list, the projects that we wish to include from a transportation perspective, which includes both vehicular travel or non-motorized pedestrian travel. So those are all on here. It ensures our projects are included in an adopted city planning document, which helps us seek funding for those projects. Many of our granting agencies ask, has the council adopted this as a project they want to move forward with? And we can confidently say yes when we have this. There will be a resolution that gets passed. So why create a 6-year TIP? Well, the easy answer is because it's the state law. So RCW 3577-010 and 3681-121 generally say each city and county shall update its transportation improvement plan annually and file a copy of the adopted program with the State Department of Transportation. It's required to be a 6-year planning document. It's also required to be updated annually, which adds to the confusion, but it's helpful. So how are these projects added? Our projects are primarily originating from our city's 20-year transportation plan, which was passed early last year, actually. We update it every 10 years. It's part of the comp plan. But then we also reevaluate this list annually as part of this process. So projects are removed as they become completed or they age into our 6-year plan. Also, new projects are added as needs arise. Projects that we did not identify in previous years, but all of a sudden it's a new project that we really need to address. We make sure those get in here. Also includes some washtop projects. So you'll see a couple washtop projects on our list. This provides a basis for city support for those projects. It makes it easy for us to say, yes, that is something that we're in favor of and that we're supporting it because it's in our plan too. We are, incorporating that. Additionally, if there is a financial contribution that we are providing for any project it needs to be part of this. So we did have, we'll talk about the Gateway project in a few minutes, Courtney will, but if we did have a financial contribution to that project, as well as a number of cities around the region. WashDOT asked for financial support there. So real brief, there are two different types of transportation improvement programs out there. They can be constrained or they can be unconstrained. We have an unconstrained TIP. So what does that mean? It means that we note the funding that we know about, that we have, but it also, some projects don't have full funding on this. Other cities show all of the ways that they're going to fund all of their projects. So that's why they call it constrained. But with ours, it shows our future project needs, and it allows us to go after grants for those future project needs. It's more of a wish list than it is, or at least a desired list, than maybe other agencies use it as more of their budgeting and planning document. So generally, how are transportation projects funded in the city? So there's kind of two sides of it. There's the limited local resources side of the slide, and then there's our state and federal grants. So what are those limited local resources? We're using them primarily for grant matches. Like I mentioned at the bottom, it's very rare to complete a transportation project without a grant in our city. And in most cities too. There's many, it's very, these projects are very expensive. And so the financial resources, we try to leverage outside granting agencies as much as we can. And then we take the funding that we do put in and try to use that as a grant match strategically. So those funds can come from, there's a property tax set aside, which we'll talk about later in the year, that is specifically for transportation grant matches. There is our transportation impact fees, which is a restricted pot that can only be used for projects that increase capacity on our roadways. There is the real estate excise tax, or REIT, that can be used for this or many other things. So, and that's not necessarily a pot that we use very often, but it is available to fund transportation projects. The Council Strategic Reserve is another location where historically projects have gotten a shot in the arm for those projects that Council wants to move forward a little bit more aggressively. And then new from last year is our Transportation Benefit District. Typically, we're using, or we've been instructed to use that for maintenance and preservation projects. It is a little bit more open to what it could be used for, but that is what we are doing with them. We talked about that earlier in the year. Additionally, the general fund is available for transportation projects, although it's pretty rarely used because there's just so many competing interests. So on the flip side, there's the state and federal grants. Just want to mention off the bat, there's significant staff effort every time we get one of these grants. However, they are very beneficial to moving projects forward, and like I mentioned, we really can't do projects without them. They're typically limited to major roadways, so we're talking, Courtney will talk about it a little bit, but Traffic Avenue, Valley, our major arterials, our major collectors, our federally classified roadways. Those are roadways that we can typically apply for some of the larger grants. There are many, a project on Washington Street or Hunt or Elizabeth is not one that we can easily get funding from those state and federal grants for. Those state and federal grants are also usually regionally competitive, and you also have to have a project that really aligns with the grant criteria. So it might be a freight project that or a freight grant that you're going after. You're going to have to find that project on our tip that is that provides a great freight benefit, and that's the one we probably want to try to apply for that grant. Or there are a myriad of other grants. There's a bicycle and pedestrian grant. Well, we're going to be trying to find the project that best aligns with that program's project needs, and it'll be bicycle. Maybe it's a bike lane, or maybe it's a sidewalk. So we're very selective, and that is also a reason we have so many projects on our list, so that we can look at a grant competition and say what is the best the best project we can put forward to try to secure some funds. So with that, I will turn it over to Courtney, who will go through a lot of roadway projects for us.
Thank you, Michael. As he mentioned, I'm going to go through a lot, so bear with me as I ramble about each project. So this map you see on the screen is all of our projects that are on the 6-year TIP. The A designated projects are our arterial street program. The C's are our collector street program. The T's are our trail program. These two maps break it out between the federally classified roadways and the non-federally classified roadways. As you'll see, the federally classified roadways does have all of our A projects and a few C's, and then the non-federally classified on the right does have quite a few projects on it, so those are the ones that are a lot harder to get that grant funding for. Okay, so now I'm going to go through each project individually. So I'll have each project zoomed in with the letter and number, and then I'm going to kind of just go brief description, and I'll keep flipping, so bear with me. Project A1 is our Stewart Road Bridge. This project began in March 2025 and is expected to wrap up in 2028. Project A2 is our 166th Avenue East widening. This project will construct a roundabout at the intersection of 166th and 64th, as well as the on and off ramps at State Route 410. This project, we're currently working through environmental permitting, and it's expected to last through the middle of this year. This project also includes the replacement of a fish passage culvert for Salmon Creek that runs under the intersection of 166th and 64th. We were awarded $2.25 million from PSRC for our right-of-way phase, and our construction phase is currently unfunded. Project A3 is Valley Avenue Overlay Phase 1, which is from the south city limits to Meade-McCumber Road East. This project design is currently underway, and the project is expected to be constructed next summer. Project A4 is Phase 2 of the Valley Avenue Overlay, which would go from Meade-McCumber Road East to Elm Street. This project construction is unfunded and will begin design for that next portion in 2028. Project A5 is our Stewart Road ITS corridor improvements. So this project will connect traffic signals and the railroad crossing to coordinate that signal timing along the corridor. The project is going to begin design in the coming weeks, and our construction phase is currently unfunded. Project A6, this one's a little bit tricky to show on the map, so that's what the little list is there. So this project is our systemic horizontal curve and roadway departure safety improvements. This project is going to install curve warning signs, speed feedback signs, rumble strips, and all the things of that nature. The project's currently in design and is expected to be constructed in 2027. Project A7 is our Puyallup Street and Tacoma Avenue intersection improvements. So this project will upgrade the intersection of Puyallup and Tacoma to a roundabout, as well as do overlay along Tacoma Avenue. The project design is ongoing and is expected to last through 2029, and the construction phase is currently unfunded. Project A8, this one's kind of spread out. This is our Main Street Crossings project. This project will upgrade the intersections along Main Street with curb bulb outs, flashing beacons, and refresh crosswalk markings. This project was awarded TIB grant funding for design and construction, of which the grant will cover 76% of the project costs. The design will be completed this year, with construction beginning in spring of 2027. Project A9, this is another one that's hard to show on a map. This is our roadway curve warning and delineation project. So this one will install signing and striping improvements, raised median and speed feedback signs. Design on this project will begin in the coming weeks with construction in 2027, and this project is 100% funded through HSIP. Project A10 is East Valley Highway and Forest Canyon Road East intersection improvements. This project will upgrade the intersection to a roundabout to improve the intersection improvements. This intersection was identified in our transportation plan as currently functioning at a level service F, which is as bad as it gets. Planning was recently completed on this intersection upgrade. Project A11 is our Traffic Avenue and Main Street intersection improvements. This project will upgrade that signalized intersection to improve function. This project was identified in the updated transportation improvement plan and is currently a level D and will be a level of service E in 2044. Project A12 is our East Valley Highway and Elm Street and Valley Avenue intersection improvements. So this project will upgrade both of those intersections to roundabouts. This project was also identified in our updated transportation plan to make improvements to both of these intersections, and planning was also recently completed. Project A13 is a WashDOT project. This is the State Route 167 and I-5 connection project, the WashDOT Gateway project. Project Stage 2A is currently underway with the entirety of the project expected to be completed in 2030. Project A14 is another WashDOT project. This is the State Route 167 southbound express toll lane extension project from State Route 512 to Ellingson Road, which will add that southbound hot lane. This is also a WashDOT-led project, which is expected to begin in about 6 years. Project A15, this is the Sumner Taps Highway and 60th Street East intersection improvements. This project will rebuild the existing intersection to improve roadway geometrics to increase the allowable movements. This is an unfunded project that will come in future years with possibility to fund this project through TIF. Project A16, this is also a WashDOT-led project. This is the State Route 410 and 162 interchange improvements. This will construct a one-lane roundabout configuration at each of those on and off ramps. This project is expected to be completed in the early 2030s. Project A17 is 160th Avenue East between Main Street and 64th Street East. This project would improve and widen the streets to minor arterial standards. This has been partially completed by developers with additional improvements to be completed by developers prior to a full city-led project. Project A18 is our Main Street and 160th intersection improvements. This would evaluate the intersection, improve sidewalks and ADA improvements. This was also identified in our transportation plan to construct a signal or roundabout when the volumes are warranted. Project A19 is Main Street crosswalk improvements near the new library site. This project would evaluate a warranted pedestrian crossing facility in the vicinity of that new library. This is a study only and will be used to determine the future needs of additional crosswalks near that new site. Project A20 is Traffic Avenue ITS improvements between State Route 410 and Main Street. This project would connect traffic signals to coordinate signal timing to increase that vehicular traffic flow and reduce peak hour delay. This is a new project on the list that will connect those traffic signals and is currently unfunded. And Project A21 is the 24th Street East reconstruction between 136th and 138th, including that approach to the railroad there. So this is a new project that will reconstruct that roadway, just the approach, not the tracks, and would reprofile that roadway to help reduce that crown as you're going over the tracks there. Okay, on to our collector street program. The list is much shorter. Project C1 is our Elm Street and Wood Avenue sidewalks. So this is between Bonnie Avenue and Zender Street, and this would extend that sidewalk on the north side of Elm Street, kind of tying into that recently completed sidewalk work near Siebenthaler Park. Project C2 is the Cherry and Maple Street utilities. This project would replace aging utilities in support of that town center plan redevelopment, but also rebuild that roadway there. Project C3 is Hunt Avenue. This project's going to improve Hunt Avenue to residential street standards. This project's currently in design with our construction phase unfunded. Project C4, this one is also kind of in a bunch of locations. So this is our neighborhood traffic calming and intersection data collection. So this will be a planning study to conduct intersection and traffic calming data, which will begin in the coming weeks and is 100% covered by HSIP. Project C5 is 160th Avenue East from Elm Street to Main Street, which will improve 160th Avenue East to Collector Street standards with curb, gutter, sidewalks. This project's unfunded, and design completion would assist developers of properties to provide required design information. Project C6 is Elm Street East between East Valley Highway and 160th. This would also improve Elm Street to Collector Street standards with curb, gutter, sidewalks. This project is also unfunded, but is ready for developers who need public design information. Project C7 is Parker Road East between 62nd and 63rd Street. This would also construct curb, gutter, and sidewalk on the east side of the street. So there's a section of missing Parker over there, and this is currently unfunded, but the design completion would also assist developers if we're developing where that missing sidewalk is at. Project C8 is also Parker Road East, but from Main Street to Elm Street. This would also reconstruct Parker Road to Collector Street standards with curb, gutter, sidewalk. Currently unfunded, and again, design completion would assist developers to provide that required design information. Project C9 is Zender Street from Peace Avenue to Wood Avenue. So this would be railroad crossing improvements to the at-grade BNSF rail crossing. We're continuing to look for grant funding to improve this rail crossing. Project C10 is the 162nd Avenue East segment extension from 64th Street East to 60th Street East. This would construct a new 2-lane roadway with sidewalks. This has been laid out in the East Sumner neighborhood circulation, but further planning is still needed. Project C11 is the 164th Avenue Court East segment extension from 162nd to 164th, which would also construct a new 2-lane roadway section with sidewalks. Planning has been completed, but there has not been any funding identified. C12 is the Meade-Macomber Road East and Gary Street sidewalk improvements between Wood and Valley. So there are some sidewalk gaps at both of these locations. This is an unfunded project that we're continuing to look for grant money for. And then the last on our Collector Street list is Elizabeth Street between Hunt Avenue and Traffic Avenue. And this would improve Elizabeth Street to residential street standards with those roadway improvements, including curb, gutter, and sidewalk. I do want to point out portions of this have been completed with our past sidewalk program projects, but this is also a project that is currently unfunded. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew.
All right, now cover our trail projects. First up is T1, that's our Fire Avenue Trail. This is completing a new section of the Sumner Link Trail from West Main Street to Puyallup Street. We're currently right in the middle of design and right-of-way phases, with both expected to wrap up by fall this year, and then we'll start construction right after that, with construction wrapping up next year. Next up is T2, is the White River Restoration Trail. This project is part of the much bigger White River Restoration Project, but this portion relocates about 10,000 linear feet of the Sumner Link Trail. Right, and we're looking to complete this project in 2027, and it's fully funded by the restoration project. Next up is T3, that's our River Grove pedestrian bridge. This is conducting an overpass over State Route 410, linking from 143rd Avenue East over to the corner of Alder Avenue and Maybell Street. We're currently at 30% design and moving forward. We just started our environmental phase. We're looking at construction in 2028. We've received partial funding, but we're still looking to fully fund the construction phase of the project. T4 is the Puyallup River Trail Bridge. This is a project identified by our Parks and Trail Plan for a potential crossing over the Puyallup River, kind of over in the River Grove neighborhood area. Currently, this project is unfunded. And T5 is another trail crossing over the Puyallup River next to the treatment plant over to the Puyallup Trail. This project will require kind of a joint project with the city of Puyallup. It's also a project identified in our Parks and Trail Plan and is currently unfunded. Next, we have the group of our annual street maintenance programs. They're all listed here on this table, not shown on the map just because they're kind of all over the place in different locations every year, and some are kind of for an as-needed basis. But we have our street overlay program, our roadway paint line application, pavement repairs, roadway plastic marking applications, chip seal application, and crack seal application. These 6 are all kind of annual programs that we complete yearly that are kind of analyzed based on their PCI ratings. I have a map coming up next that will show that. R7 is our neighborhood traffic control program. This is a as-needed program that looks at modifying residential streets to enhance pedestrian safety or slow down speeding. Then we have our ADA transition plan. This helps address identified projects in our ADA transition plan. It's also as needed basis can help fund any ADA grievances that we receive for city-owned property. Then we have our sidewalk maintenance program. This has helped to rebuild failing sidewalks due to street tree damage. And then our Helping Homeowners program. This is a kind of 50-50 cost share program that we work with homeowners where they are responsible for sidewalk repairs. So this year we have a combined project coming up for the sidewalk maintenance program and Helping Homeowners that's currently in design and looking to start constructing this summer. So here's that pavement condition index map that I mentioned earlier. The citywide map based on our pavement ratings that we do each year. We do half a city at a time each year. So, and then a rating is calculated for these roadways based on cracks or potholes, and the lower the number, the worse the road. So red, kind of 0 to 25 are some of our worst locations, but these ratings kind of help us determine where we do these annual programs, such as crack seal, pavement patching, chip seal. Then that brings us to our projects completing this year. First up, we have our Washington Street Preservation Project. This is kind of rebuilding the roadway between Wood Avenue and McMillan Avenue. We're currently out to bid right now, so we'll be starting construction soon and hope to wrap up by the end of the year. And then we have our Maple Street and pedestrian signal citywide signal backplates project that started construction. This is kind of replacing those backplates on all our signals and then replace the existing pedestrian activated or putting in a new pedestrian activated crossing there at Maple Street. We started construction. The project's currently suspended at the moment, waiting for better weather for kind of paint striping, and then still waiting on materials for the backplates and flashing beacons. So, and then.
So I'll just a quick wrap up. So that kind of is the encompasses this, and summarizes our transportation improvement program. There is a resolution that you'll be adopting. This is clearly a draft, so we welcome feedback. We welcome discussion and any sort of, especially if there's, you find typos too. There's a lot of information here, so we're always trying to make it as good as we can. But tonight's our study session. After this, on April 6th, we're scheduled to have a public hearing on this, and then it will be back for unfinished business on April 20th for a resolution adoption. So with that, we wanted to see if we had any questions, feedback, and what we can incorporate or what we can help with.
All right. Councilmember Kenna.
Thank you all. That was really extensive. You guys did a great job of shepherding us through all the work going on. A few maybe clarifying questions and then a couple more granular ones. In terms of the total costs column, is that the project all in? That doesn't necessarily demonstrate how much is left to fund, like if we're through planning and design or something like that. That's just the total project cost.
Yeah, I believe that's the total project cost that you're seeing there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that would be both design and construction.
Okay. And in terms of the I'm just visually looking at the projects across the map and thinking about all the different neighborhoods in our town. Is it really just strategically about the money and the timing and when we can get funding or not? Or do we apply any sort of equity lens to this to say certain parts of town maybe haven't had a repair or improvement for a while and we're looking over there? How is that kind of baked into this?
So not as much baked into the overall plan. There's just so many different projects out there. So we do feel like there's a pretty good distribution of projects really among the entire city. When it comes down to other, some of the maintenance discussions and also the, we have a lot of, especially our street tree sidewalk repair program. That is one where we are very focused on making sure that funds are spent around the city, not just in one portion of the city. So looking at how we can kind of have benefits to all different parts of the community and make those and develop those neighborhoods in an equitable fashion.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, it does look like they are, sprinkled throughout town, and we have a variation of different types of projects, so it's not one for one. But it sounds like what you're saying is that because we're identifying different projects throughout town, like generally we're going to get to these all at some point in time. It's not as easy as just saying this neighborhood, then that neighborhood, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for some of our other more programmatic things like our crack seal program, our chip seal program, we are looking at the roadways themselves to see what the conditions are. But we're also looking at, are we just focusing on one area? We really need to be looking at each neighborhood and making sure that we have dollars spent in the Main Street, downtown, historic downtown area, as well in, some town center, East Main, and also looking at the industrial area and making sure that people's needs are being met.
Sure. And then on the, just going to the annual street maintenance program, who, is it council? I might not even know, but is it council that kind of determines the amount in each of those buckets, the proportion of funds to each of those buckets?
Yep, that's a great question. It is part of the annual or the biennial budget, so it's something that we discuss and recommend during the budget cycle, which is coming up, and then council decides if they want to change those levels or not. It's a discussion topic, and it's something that's adopted by council every 2 years.
I would maybe just a note for that process is, I'd like to see that ADA transition plan get a little bit more money. It's currently funded less than painting. And I know that's can be a safety measure as well, but I know that folks that rely on being able to get around town through a wheelchair or motorized wheelchair, we have a number of sidewalks that just need improvement. So maybe we can talk about that down the road during the budget process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last question, I'll let you off the hook. I was aware there's a project, and I didn't think about this until tonight, otherwise I would have asked you beforehand, but there's a project that the Puget Sound Regional Council identified in their Regional Safety Action Plan, and it's on East Valley Highway from 150th to 29th Street East. And they kind of identified that as a safety issue or concern, and I didn't see that on this map. It's in the area of one of our trail improvements on T2, but I wondered if that was kind of on a list to look at to go after funding down the road, or if that appears somewhere else in our planning.
That's something we can look into. I want to make sure that we need to go back and probably take a look and see what that specific was. We do have safety improvements along the East Valley Highway corridor right now, which is part of one of the federally funded 100% grants that in our safety. It was the Highway Safety Improvement Program grant through FHWA. So we do have some planned kind of basic safety improvements there. I think there's some guardrail and rumble strips that we're looking at on East Valley Highway. So we'll look and see how that is compatible with what they're looking at, and maybe we cover some of that, and maybe we need to make some adjustments to match what other people are seeing. So
great. Thanks for dealing with my curveballs, Michael.
No, it's all right. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Elfers.
Yeah, thank you. I always enjoy this presentation. There's a lot of stuff going on. So a couple pieces of feedback that I think Mr. Kenna mentioned, but one of them was, I think, on the information here, one thing I got from Courtney when you were going through the arterials is on A10 and A11. You mentioned that A10 was an F and A11 was a D. I think it'd be really helpful if that was on everyone, because I think I'd love to, like, for making decisions on priorities and stuff like that, looking forward, I'd love to see number one, like, I think maybe you just mentioned the only D's and F's, but I'd like those are really helpful, because the map with the list of streets that are behind, and then this, which has costs, to me, like, those should be next to each other. So I'd love to see that together if that's possible. At least the ones that are graded to the point where you're like, hey, these are getting to like the urgent. So I appreciate you mentioning those. Is there? I think one of the questions I had on that was Hunt. I want to say which. One of them was Hunt Street, and I thought that was on the list. That was a D or an F as well. Am I remembering that? Was that C3 maybe?
Yeah, so the levels like D, E, F, that's the function of the intersection. So Hunt Avenue wouldn't have like a level of service associated with it.
Got it. Okay. So those are like, I know some of them don't connect at all, right? Because some of them are. But I remember we had the map that had like these areas are really bad, like the Washington Street and.
Oh, you're talking about like the PCI, the pavement condition index?
Yes.
Yeah.
So our level of service is kind of like an intersection,
Yes.
rating of how quickly you can make it through, or how efficiently that intersection moves, or how much it backs up. And then our pavement condition index is how is us rating the pavement and what kind of condition the pavement itself is in.
That's what I'm talking about. So those are both helpful, and some of them I think that they go past me, because I'm like, the one intersection has a pavement issue and the other intersection has a traffic issue, and so people are concerned about both.
Yeah.
So in the decision-making part, I'd love to be able to look at this and be like, oh, okay, this one is an intersection and it's rated an F. Oh, is it a big priority? I don't know. We'll have to decide. And then this one. So I think that's good. I appreciate it. It was in your narrative part. And then the second thing is on the funding. Like I remember the pedestrian bridge on the trails. I think we got a $5 million grant at the Puget Sound Regional Council 2 years ago. So one thing I forget every time we look at this is like, all right, how much was that grant? I think it was $5 million, and then like, how long do we have to spend it? So that was an expensive project. I think that's on T3, and it was River Grove pedestrian bridge. I think it's $12 million on the total cost. If there was a way to, I think on a couple of them I just jotted down real quick notes. I think A2 you had a 2.25 million grant, and that one had $5 million. Because I think if I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, which one is important? I'm like, oh, well, this is a big project. Never mind, let's put it on the back burner. But if I'm like, oh, wait a second, we got a 50% of it. So those numbers would be really helpful. Just to have in the notes column, even like this is how much, because the notes are good. And I'm not trying to be too critical, by the way. I think it's really helpful. There's a lot of information.
Absolutely.
If that's something we could.
I think we endeavor to have a lot of the secured grant information in there. So we'll make sure that we go through and add any of that information to the notes section for the public hearing. That's great feedback. I think the level of service and PCI, I think that's something that we can look at developing for next year.
For the budget maybe or something.
I know we have some of that information, but we definitely don't have it for all the projects. So that's going to be a little more difficult for us. But we could. I think we should probably look at doing that for next year's version of this. We will definitely add any sort of grant funding and get that in there, because I think that's really important too.
Cool. And then I had two more questions. Sorry, we've got a lot of them. I'm curious. We're doing the TIP discussion. Can you explain how the annual street maintenance program connects to the TIP?
So, we've included our annual maintenance program because it is improving our roadways. It might not be the same as widening a roadway, but it is still improving and showing that we have a commitment to maintenance, which is something else actually that grant funders really like to see, that you are maintaining those roadways that you do have and trying to keep them in as good a shape as possible before you may have to come to either expand those roadways or, just falling into disrepair is not a good look.
So it's more informational only to kind of promote, like, hey, we are a little bit like how we have on a Parks Trail, like we want to say, like, hey, we have kind of matching funds or something to show, like, hey, we are doing our. And then I think my last question is there a way to turn the collector streets into arterials? Like we have a couple of streets I'm looking at that I'm like, well, this is a pretty main road, and if you improved it, it could be a very main road to get traffic through. I'm looking at. For example, Elm Street down to 160th. People go through there and get on the freeway as kind of a pass-through. Parker Road, similar. Those streets get extremely busy. How could you get a street from a C to an A? Is that a state thing, or do we have to, if we improved it and all of a sudden you had traffic counts?
So some of it is part of our transportation plan that we did last year, our 20-year transportation plan, that planning level document we talked about. That was the part of the comp plan. They modeled the entire city and looked at where the traffic patterns are, and those were the rating. Those collector and arterial descriptions came out of that. They reevaluate based on level, traffic levels. So that's what came out of that analysis.
So it's an independent traffic study?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't just be like, hey, I want this to get like your grade at school, I want this to move up to an A.
Not specifically.
Okay.
I think some of those are federally classified, though. Yes. So there are opportunities for us to apply for grants. It's just how competitive that grant, those roads would be for a grant in comparison to some of our other ones, which, things like 166, that intersection improvement is one that scores very well on a lot of projects or a lot of grant funding because of the connection to WashDOT services, the kind of gateway to the East Sumner neighborhood, and other connection points. So it's the smaller the roads, the more challenging it is to describe how they will be of a regional benefit. So
right. I'm just thinking. Okay, I think I said that was the last question, but I lied. I have one more. When you mentioned, one of the things I really liked that you mentioned is you said. This is if we improve this area, C5, C6, I think you're mentioning, okay, this would be good for development. Mm-hmm. So looking ahead into the plans, I appreciate that comment, but I just was curious. Those are factors I like thinking about when we're looking at budgets and stuff like that too. How do you guys evaluate that? Because I would like to evaluate that when we're deciding it. Sometimes we're like, oh, how bad is the street? And other times we're like, wait a second, this could really benefit like certain areas. You might be like, oh, this is going to help the city as a whole. For future developments, maybe we have an area of town that isn't this, could use some improvement, and we're like, hey, if we just did some money, put some money into the sidewalks and improved it, maybe it would draw some businesses there that would really benefit. How can we get information to help us figure that out?
It's a little tangential, but one of the things I would probably look to is our water system plan. When we did, I know it's utilities rather than transportation, but we looked at that, and we looked at the lens of the town center plan and how those two ideas would stack. If you're going to end up, improving or increasing and upzoning areas like we did in the town center plan a few years ago, what's the impact on utilities? What do we need to do to be prepared for additional development? And that's what bore out at least two projects in our Sumner Town Center area, which ended up being the WUNERF project, which was actually a major water main project, at least on from a public works perspective. We were doing a really large water main upgrade there. And then the other project you mentioned, the Cherry Maple Utilities project, is also a large water main improvement project. We went from like a 2-inch water main in a number of our older areas of town to an 8-inch water main. So we really it might have been 6. It was a major upgrade though, and water pressure, and looking at how we would serve taller buildings and looking how we would serve multifamily. So those are some areas where we've looked at how can we be ready for development when things get rezoned, and that we will be prepared to support those new developments that could be coming in without having to rely on those developers to do that.
So you just repeat what you said. I think I heard you say that in order for us to figure out which areas we might want to prioritize for benefiting development or allowing the city to development, we'd have to look at not just the streets, but also what the water plan and the utilities plan.
Yep.
To kind of look at it holistically. Okay.
That's kind of what we try to do.
Thank you.
Very
I
good.
think my time's up.
Thank you, Council Member Evers. Okay, what did we turn it on again?
Turn it off.
Okay, let's see where you're at. Here we go. Councilmember Evers, you came out of.
Red.
Yeah, it's all right. Turn it on. I'm going to Wilsey. Councilmember Wilsey. Hit your button.
Hit it again?
No, just turn it off and turn it back on.
All right, jumping in real quick, just a clarifying question. So this is not a to-do list like tick, tick, tick. What this is an accumulation of all of the information, and as it gets funded, you then proceed on with each task that needs to be accomplished until it is done and then taken off of the list, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just, just making sure we're not waiting on this to get that done.
Absolutely. We do a lot of times look at the priorities of what we are thinking is going to be happening more quickly versus not.
Yeah.
So we do kind of reprioritize on a yearly basis and look at, okay, well, this Stewart Road Bridge, for example, is A1. That is currently under construction. It's going to go.
Yeah.
So we look at kind of, it's not really too much of a science. It's more of an art.
Right.
But looking at what might be some of the higher priorities and making sure they're kind of near the top.
Yeah. Okay, so all of these projects are kind of in flux and constantly moving forward to try and complete for the city.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Evers.
Okay, thanks guys, this is great, I love this stuff. I hope my wife is not watching. I don't think, just because whenever she hears the word roundabout, she cringes, but they're growing on me. And I understand calming, I understand all the community development stuff. Just really quick, help me out. Last year, the council passed, is it 0.1 or 0.01 on the sales tax? 0.1?
0.1.
Okay, and that was about 600,000 or?
Somewhere between 600,000 and 800,000.
Okay, and that's just straight to maintenance.
It is, yes. It's been earmarked for, it is committed to transportation projects because that's what that sales tax increase was. But it specifically is being used for maintenance and preservation of our roadways as well as some sidewalk work.
Okay.
So,
Council, can I ask?
yeah.
We get to the budget, then we'll have an estimate, right, of the next year's, and then we can divvy it up how we wish, or?
Yeah, this year's, I think there was a presentation to council a month ago or so, talking about what we were going to use the funds that were collected in this year, and then really that will be a budget discussion of how those funds will be used moving forward. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the two kind of big ones I see on here, they're all important, but just getting traffic through town and making driving safe is A2 and then A16. And I think A16 we have no control over, correct? Or
yes,
do we
we have no control over it. It's outside of city limits, actually.
Or does the overpass?
Yes.
Okay, and have we heard anything? I think Courtney, I didn't quote you. I thought you said early 2030s, and that kind of made me kind of happy, but yeah, I'm not going to hold you to it.
Yeah, so WashDOT, they completed their design, and then when they did the whole budget process this last year, it got shifted out a few bienniums. So that one is just kind of on hold from WashDOT.
Okay, then A2, I live on Valley Avenue. I do everything I can never to go down there. Just 'cause I don't know if anybody else can agree, but I did have somebody tagged my bumper a while back, and I looked at it. I said, just pay it forward. But so is WashDOT involved in that at all, or is it just this? I don't know. That's a really concerning intersection for me.
So they're involved in it, not funding wise, but they are involved just because we are in their limited access, working on their on and off ramps there for 410. And then, construction in general. This is federally funded quite a bit, so we are having to follow WashDOT the local agency guidelines, and so we are working with WashDOT through this entire process.
And then this is 18 million. How much do we have now, do you think? Ballpark?
That's a good question.
I'm not trying to hold you. I won't hold you to anything.
So design's funded, and so is our right of way. So we're just looking for construction funds, which is probably closer to the 12 million or a little bit more.
Okay. And this last thing, it looks like you're going to be working on my street, Valley Avenue. Thank you, I guess. Well, I'll put up a lemonade stand if you want. I'm just curious, when it says partial, so it looks like the first phase, it says partial, but it looks like the money's already there for that. If I'm reading that correct, receive grant funding for that section.
Yes, so.
But then the other part is partially funded. So, but the first phase is already funded.
Yes, so thank you for pointing that out. I will definitely update that for the public hearing. But yes, phase one, that one we're funded for design and construction, and then phase two we have design funds.
Okay. I was just happy to. I think I'm the only council person who lives maybe east of Valley, so I think that's right. Just barely. Yeah, barely. Yeah.
No, you're not.
Councilmember Wilson, there's that.
Yeah, I'm down by Rainier.
Oh.
Rainier Park?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I guess a fellow East Sider, I mean, obviously this is a great walking town, but Mead McCumber, I try to walk down to Rainier Park, and you run into farmland, and then you have to cross the street, which is more walking, which I guess is good. And Mead McCumber too on the west side of Valley, that's always if I'm going to walk my downtown walk, that's always a little dicey, kind of getting through there. So I was happy to see that.
Thank you. Councilmember Kenna.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to start any beef here between West Siders and East Siders as a West Sider myself. But no, just one kind of last question or point. And maybe I'll just prompt you with what I think the answer is, and you can kind of correct me. If the community was looking where their input is in this list, my assumption is within the street maintenance program, if somebody says, hey, my sidewalk's not so great, how can I get that sidewalk program? Get some funding for that. So that's where that might show up. If we do notice like a ramp or something, that maybe the ADA transition plan could be used for part of that. If we hear from the community, different chip sealing or things that come up as needed, that's where community input might be found. And then I assume, you guys may hear from the public occasionally about a certain project that might be used as data to inform, things you might already know or maybe not know, and that ends up on this list maybe sometime down the road. So is there any other ways that the public feedback might kind of end up on this list somewhere underneath it all?
Yeah, I mean, there are a multitude of ways, and clearly contacting the city is one way. We hear a lot of folks that, usually it's more frustrations about traffic or pavement condition than compliments. But when people reach out, we're here to listen and to take those comments and look at what are we doing there? How are we adjusting? Do we need to adjust something? Is there something that we should be doing? Is that road in worse condition than some of the other roads that we underestimate? So when we do have people reach out to us, and they're welcome to do that, that's great. The community is our eyes and ears, and how we can try to best manage this roadway network. So we do appreciate any time people reach out to us. Of course, we're usually at open houses that the city holds. The public hearing is another way that someone can comment, either in writing beforehand or in person. They can always provide comment on this program. But really, any way of communication, email is a great way for people to communicate that. So we take all those different avenues, any way that people can reach out to us, and analyze what their concerns are. And sometimes we can help them. Sometimes we can say, we got a project coming. Sometimes we say, well, it's going to be a while, or we're looking for funding for that. But it's really helpful for us to be able to guide our recommendations to council.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so then I will ask City Administrator Jason Wilson to come up. Do we have a report tonight? And then agenda setting. So council meeting agenda calendar, anything on that of criticality?
I don't have any, but I know that the Public Works Committee was moved to now the third Tuesday of the month. So it was the first, now it's the third, starting in April, correct, Michael?
Yes.
Starting next month.
All right, and then council committee meeting agenda calendar, anything there that anybody needs to share, talk about? All right, we have no executive session, correct? Correct. So, anybody have anything else? We got to take her. Councilmember Hochstetter.
I just want to say it was fun to see our city attorney at the Sumner girls basketball game and see so many other. I saw Councilmember Kenna there as well. I know people that work at the city or serve on the council invested in the local high school and the athletic. It's really cool to see. So thank you. And the girls just barely lost. They barely lost. They got second in state, but that was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Then on that note, I will end this meeting at 7:17.